the sense of what it's like to a physical object in a supposed physical world. So you inevitably are stuck with a hard problem. So what I am trying to play with, and the same as you, I don't want to convince you this is right, but I'd love to be able to discuss with you more where this goes, is to say there's nothing it's like to be a bat. There is only something it's like to be the bat's representation of a bat, or the bat's representation of what it's like flying through the world. And why is this a good idea? To my mind, because if you ask what is it like to be a bat's representation of itself now, the answer is it's like whatever the representation says it's like, because that's what representations are. So that's my way of avoiding. I haven't solved the hard problem. I've simply said we never should have got into the hard problem in the first place. So I would love your response to that, because I think it leads to a very different way of doing consciousness studies, of the experiments that we should do and so on. And I'm interested in working out where this goes. And I'd love your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Just for the sake of the audience, we have this running discussion already in the background for a while. So I'll say things that you already know, because we have had this discussion, but for the sake of the audience, I will repeat. Because you are not a materialist, by doing this, you get rid of the hard problem. I agree with you. I don't think doing this saves the materialist from the hard problem. No. I am with you. I know that you believe that mind tends to deceive itself. You know that I agree with you. I am known for saying that the mind's first directive is to deceive itself. So I go even further than you. I think it's really a fundamental property of mind that it seeks actively to deceive itself. It's not even something that is casual or circumstantial or it's dispositional, it's archetypal. So I can't defend that, but that's what I believe. Huh?
Not just an accident or byproduct. It's central.
I think it's central. It's part of the inherent properties of mind, this attempt to deceive itself. It's what creates the world, in a sense. Creates the personal self, which is it's a delusion right there, right? There is no reason for us to think that there is such a thing as a true personal agent that remains the same across time, that it is just not there. And the more you look, the more you don't find it. Now, I am completely comfortable with the idea that what is it like to be a bat is what it is like to be the model of the bat, and that there is nothing it is like to fundamentally be a bat, because the bat isn't even there. The person isn't even there. What are we talking about? What is it like to be something that doesn't exist? It's always what is it like to be a model.
Yes.
And that model is a conscious model. It's a mental model. I'm totally comfortable with that. The reason I think this doesn't save the materialist is that if you are a materialist or an illusionist or an eliminativist, the argument line that started with Dennett in 91 goes like this. There's only neuroactivity. That's all there is. Why doesn't it feel to us like we are neuroactivity? Why does our sense of being, our model of ourselves, feel so different than neurons firing? Well, it's because what we experience is a model of ourselves, and that model is a kind of digest of what is really going on, and that digest feels different than neuroactivity. That's then its attempt as a materialist to get rid of the hard problem. I think it doesn't work because premise one is there is only neuroactivity, so that model of the self can only be neuroactivity. So you only postpone the problem, because why doesn't the model of the self then feels like neuroactivity? Well, we need a meta model, but that meta model can only be made of neuroactivity, because that's your first premise. That's all there is. So why doesn't the meta model feel like neuroactivity? So you can keep on playing that meta problem forever, postponing the problem like Keith Frankish does, but it just postpones it. It doesn't solve anything. In your case, it helps because you are not a materialist. You are more, you had a word the other day by email that I thought was a great word. Your basic premise is that the mind is always deceiving itself, so it creates models of itself.
Delusionist.
I'm completely but you are not an eliminativist illusionist.
No.
You're a delusionist. Something like that. I'm comfortable with that. I think what it is like to be Bernardo is a delusion. There is no Bernardo. There is a fluid, moving pattern of mental states that has changed a gazillion times since the day I was born. There is no such a thing as Bernardo, so there cannot be anything it is like to be a Bernardo that doesn't exist. There can only be a model of Bernardo, and that model remains more or less stable. It's a narrative, I tell myself. I'm totally comfortable with that because it's entirely compatible with idealism. In idealism, there are only mental states. Those mental states can come together in the form of a self-delusive model. What is important is that idealism maintains the space for the delusion to exist. Even if everything's an illusion, everything's a delusion, we still experience the illusions and the delusions. And idealism makes room available for that, which it doesn't for the eliminativist or the illusionist in the materialist sense. Because if you say consciousness is an illusion, well, it backfires immediately because the illusion is experienced. So there has to be a consciousness to experience the illusion of consciousness. If everything is an illusion, then precisely what we are saying is that there is only consciousness. And there is nothing outside consciousness that factually corresponds to the inner statements of consciousness.